Hey there, and I am so excited. We have Dustin Brady with us. Dustin, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
So you have been trapped in a video game. You've escaped from a video game. You've done so much with video games, and you're an author. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah, I'll tell you a little bit how I became an author and how it led to my latest book. So, about 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to write kids' books. I always loved reading as a kid, and specifically, I loved reading books that were funny and had lots of action in it. So, what I did was I wanted to sit down and I wanted to write a book that would be my favorite book ever when I was 10 years old. If I had a time machine, go back in time, give it to myself, it'd be my favorite book ever. So, what I did is I actually made a list of all the things I was into at that time, and unsurprisingly, at the top of that list was video games. And so I sat down, I wrote a book. I call it Trapped in a Video Game. I want to let people know exactly what it's about in the title. And I did exactly what I wanted. If I wanted to write it, so my 10-year-old self would be very pleased with it. So I wrote it, and I actually decided to self-publish it. And so I called my brother, who's actually an illustrator, which works out well. I said, hey, can you make me a cover and do illustrations for the book? He's like, do you have any money? Well, not really. He's like, all right, fine. And he did it. And so I put it on there and I put it up on Amazon. I waited for somebody to buy it. I waited like a really long time for someone to buy it. I waited like 10 minutes for someone to buy it. I clicked refresh and nobody had bought it. And I'm like, that's fine. It was only 10 minutes. I waited 5 more minutes, clicked refresh again. Nobody bought it all day. Refresh. And nobody bought it until the end of the day. I clicked refresh again one more time for a bed, and that 0 turned into a 1. And I'm like, I'm an author. Oh, I was so excited about it until the next morning. My mom called and she's like, hey, I saw your book was on Amazon. And so I bought it. I'm like, oh, that doesn't count. But eventually somebody, well, maybe it counts for like half. But eventually a couple of days later, someone bought it for real, and then somebody else bought it for real. And then I discovered something that I should have probably figured out. But there's there's a bunch of kids who think that they hate reading, and a bunch of kids who think that they love video games, and that Venn diagram is almost a circle. And so there are a lot of parents that were trying to find books, for the kids that don't like reading, and so this seemed like it would appeal to them. And since I wrote it to be my favorite book when I was that age, the kids were actually liking it and reading it. And so parents were writing reviews and telling each other about it. And it started growing popularity. And I would get notes maybe starting once a month or once a week. And now nearly every day I get notes from parents and teachers who are like, man, my student, my kid, they never liked reading before. And I've tried a bunch of stuff. And this is the first book they've read without prompting. So that's been awesome. And so since it's grown like that, Andrews McMeel Publishing, they called about a year later and they said, hey, we'd love to republish your books, get them to a wider audience, make them more accessible to teachers and libraries and things like that. And so I signed with them and re-release the book. So the Trap series, there's 5 books in that series. We were right at about 1 million sales for that series, which is crazy. I couldn't believe it when that happened. And so kind of once that took off and I, learned who the audience was for the books, I wanted to do more things to make them accessible to reluctant readers, since that was my audience and that was, the group that was appealing to. So I did a couple things. And when I was thinking about a follow-up series, that's the first thing I had in mind. And so I came up with Escape from a Video Game. And again, very creatively titled, I know. So this is the first book in the series.
It works.
I know it does. So it's The Secret of Phantom Island. This came out in the fall. And this is like a choose your own adventure style of book. Because again, just talking to teachers and readers, that's a kind of style that reluctant readers really connect with a lot of times. They're very short, very accessible to get into little sections and stuff like that. And so, I wanted to make the best experience again for that kind of reader. So I did a couple things I hadn't seen in other choose your own adventure style stories. So for one, like I remember reading them as a kid, I would always get frustrated when you'd get to an ending and it would end and you're like, I have to page back to where I was. So I put little checkpoints in there, like a video game, right? And then it was also sometimes a little frustrating when you get to an ending and it was like a bad ending. And then you're trying to find the good ending. So what I did for every ending in the book, there's maybe 40 or so of them. There's a letter associated with it. And then when the kid finds every single ending in the book, they put all the letters together and they get a message and they type it into a website and they get a story. It's a start to finish. It's about a 20-page short story. So it rewards them for reading with more reading. And that's something that's been cool for kids. So that led me to the latest book in the series, Mystery on the Starship Crusader. So again, same kind of idea. This one is more of a mystery. My initial thinking with the book was I wanted to do, I like mystery stories, murder mysteries in particular, but you can't really have murder in kids' books that much. But it's a video game, and so it's okay in a video game context, like that kind of context, and so I thought that would be fun and set it on a spaceship with, so there's 8 characters in there. All on a spaceship together, and then one of them is the traitor. They're trying to get rid of everybody. So I came up with this thing. I thought it was very original, very clever, and I sent my manuscript off to my editor. As soon as I sent it off, this video game came out called Among Us, and teachers listening might be very familiar with it because it's with kids. It's one of the biggest video games in the world right now, where it's literally the exact same idea, where there's a crew on a spaceship. One of them is a traitor, and you're trying to figure out who it is. So I'm excited about that because it helps kids that really like Among Us to give them a book that's it eases their way into reading through this book, and I'm excited that there's that little bit of a tie-in for those kids, and again, it's all about getting kids excited to read.
Wow. So these books are nonstop action, and there's also a lot of humor. I think you just do that so well. I mean, you're going to laugh, and your pulse is going to race on every page. So yay. So many rewards in there. I especially, I have to say, love the Amish romance, Wrong Turn. That just made me laugh out loud. So
That's funny. Yeah, I remember when I came up with that. So if you get to choose whether you want to do the adventure at the beginning or not, and if you choose no, you end up in an Amish romance with a lot of cheese-related puns. And I was just cackling to myself all day about it. The hardest part of that was like trying to come up with a title for an Amish romance that hadn't been done before. I thought of, literally 10 of them, and I kept Googling, and my mind was exploding that they all existed already. But I was cackling to myself, and I was my wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, you just wait. This is pretty good." So I don't know if any kids are going to be amused by that, but it really amused me.
Oh, well, if you can make yourself laugh, then that's half of it, right? And it seems like you really are good at tapping your inner 10-year-old.
Yeah, it's again, like it just comes naturally for me. It seems like for me it would be very hard to write an adult book. It's just very easy for me to tap into that. So I'm very happy to do that.
So was there a book that you read when you were 10 or even earlier, maybe, that was the book that transformed you into a reader?
Yeah, you know what? I remember like I was at the library, once, twice a week, every week with my parents.
You were
So
that
I mean,
kid.
so I was that kid. So I wasn't a reluctant reader, I have my favorites. I liked, mysteries. So everything for Hardy Boys, Boxcar Children, I remember. My favorite probably all time was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Or
But I liked, again, books that were, I always gravitated towards books that were funny, and I felt like there's a lot more of a genre now for kids than there was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was a lot more adventure and mystery books, and again, I love those adventure and mystery books as well.
yeah, when I was a kid, the mysteries were Nancy Drew or
Sure.
Encyclopedia Brown, who
Oh yeah. And I know, and I went back and reread some of the Encyclopedia Browns when I was preparing for this mystery thing, because I just remember they felt impossible to me, and you'd get 1 out of 10 of them, and you'd be so excited. So I wanted to try to to see where that was at. So it was fun revisiting those after all these years.
and you do a lot of school visits, it seems like. A lot of, I guess, virtual now, but you do a lot of interaction with your fans.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's my favorite thing to do is to go to a school visit and, to see the kids light up and to kind of, maybe you're doing an older 4th, 5th, 6th grade and to start to win them over a little bit too, and to get them excited about books. So that's my favorite thing I get to do as an author.
So I know that you always invite them to ask questions. So I'm sure that a lot of them say, "Do you make a lot of money as an author?" But, and evidently, if you've sold 1 million, yes, you do. But what is a memorable question or a surprising question or something a kid has asked you? You thought, "Oh, that's interesting. Or,
Oh,
wow, I'm worried about you.
yeah. No, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. There's been so many, funny ones, and the ones you get over and over again. Um, let's see, probably there was one where a kid emailed me and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know that this is really great. If Mr. Brady's still alive, if he's not, please let him know that please tell his family, like, hey, great news, kid, I'm still here. So let's see,
Condolences.
yeah, and again, like once the kids finish the Trapped series, there's it leads them to a website and there's a little form where they can ask me anything, and some of them do ask me anything. And I just got let's see, the other day a kid just asked me if I prefer homemade pizza or pizza from a to go out carry out pizza, and what's my favorite kind. And he went really deep into the pizza question. So
Well,
I
do
love hearing
tell. I mean, what
seeing
is
what they
your,
come from. Oh, great. Well, sure. Yeah, my mom, growing up, made pizza homemade pizza every Sunday night. So I love
well,
my
there you
mom's
go.
pizza. We have a
Now we
local
know.
place nearby that is great too, called Angelo's. So if you're ever in the
Well, there you
Cleveland
go.
area.
Yeah, we have an Angelo's here where I am in Nashville too. So that must be the
Oh, okay.
thing. Yeah, every community has their Angelo's. Well,
Sure.
that is amazing. Now you've talked a lot about reluctant readers, and I'm sure that teachers who work with reluctant readers would love to know any strategies. Although it's kind of seems like with your book, it's just like you like video games here. I mean, it's just probably not that
Right.
simple, but I mean, it just seems so perfect for those kids who are determined not to want to get into a story.
Yeah, I think for me, like I told you how I came at it,
Mhm.
where my original concept was just to give myself a book that I would love, and so I kind of came at it from that way. I wasn't a reluctant reader as a kid, so I've really tried to ask teachers and librarians a lot, like what can I do to be better? What can I do to help this group more? So I'm learning at the same time. One of the things that I've heard a lot is the short manageable chapters
Right.
is really key, and that's something that just kind of comes naturally to me. So like I have a
Mhm.
cliffhanger with the Trap series. I have a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter. I mean, chapters are 1,000 words, maybe 1,200 words max, and that's a lot of cliffhangers, and it kind of gets them going through the thing. So to give them little chunks and to reward them throughout is something that I try to do a lot. And again, it is with my books as simple as like, hey, like video games, like this is something you're gonna like. I wanted to make it the best book. Tell them what it's about in the title, because again, it's self-published. Nobody knows who I am originally, and so like I want to tell them what it's about in the title, and if that's something that appeals to you, I wanted to make this the best book for somebody who that would appeal to, and so it's all geared towards that. So my hat's off to teachers and librarians, especially during this time with distant learning and parents trying to get their kids to read. So I hope that I can play a small part in that. One of the other things too is that I've heard from is that it is really nice for kids to connect with the author. So I've tried to make that as easy as possible. So for instance, I have teacher's guides for my Trap series, and for classes that go through it, there's this little thing where there's a worksheet where the kids can ask questions to the author, and it gives them little tips for interviewing, and then the teachers send those to me, and then I'll make a video answering that class. So even though if it's not a whole virtual visit, like it gives that connection to the class and something to look forward to. So that's been fun to do.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. That's amazing. And what is that website?
DustinBradyBooks.com.
Yep, just had to give you an opportunity to put that in there. Actually,
Sure,
there's
thanks.
so much stuff on there. That's great. I'm sure we're going to have some more escape books. So that's the next thing coming down the pike for you.
Yeah, I'm working on the next one right now. So it's like a battle royale kind of thing. So think Fortnite and things like that with the kids. I wanted to make it, fun and accessible for kids. So right now, listen, don't hold me to this because it's just in the beginning stages right now. But
Sure.
I want to have like it's super villain themed, and so there's all these super villains that are teaming up with you and against you, and they all have like kind of silly super villain weapons, and you're trying to become the last one there. So once we have that, we want to do a set with those, and then with the three of them, and then there's a continuing story, like I said, that's associated with when the kids find it. So we want to make that its own book, and it'll be like a box set bonus and get it illustrated and all that stuff. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
really looking forward
incredible.
to that.
Yeah, I keep thinking Easter egg when you tell me about the hidden secret story at the end.
Right. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah. That's what I want it to feel like. So
yeah, well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. We've learned so much. And again, that's DustinBradyBooks.com, right?
yes,
So
that's it.
head over there if you want to do more. And if you are watching this during TLA, I hope you'll come and visit us. We have Dustin in the booth. So find out more about that at publisherspotlight.com. And Dustin, thanks so much and keep writing.
Oh man, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.